My guest today is Jen Granberry. Jen is the founder of Arrows Christian Academy, a microschool in Phoenix, Arizona that she launched in August of 2023.
Mhm.
Arrows is a fully integrated K-8 private school blending neurotypical and neurodiverse students with a focus on individualized learning, meeting each child where they're at academically and developmentally. She currently has 23 students enrolled with 3 teachers and 3 aides, but she's planning to grow to over 100 students and sees the pathway to that as she continues to get additional interest and continue to add grades as the kids become older as well. So, Jen Granberry, welcome to the Liberated Podcast.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you so much. I
It's
appreciate you
so
having me.
It's so good to have you here, and I was just so glad to be able to visit Arrows Christian Academy in person a few weeks back and see this beautiful learning environment that you've created. And I'd love for you to share your founder journey with my audience today because I was able to hear your story, and it'll be great for others to be inspired by what you've built. And I wonder if we could start, Jen, with a little bit of your background. So you have a background in science, you have a master's degree in soil science and worked kind of in the scientific field, but came to education really more as a parent
Right.
and wanting to find a solution for your child, specifically your youngest son. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that motivation. As how did you decide to become a school founder?
Well, it was entirely birthed out of our desire for our son to have Christian education alongside his neurotypical peers. And that was something that we were really having a hard time finding in our area. So I did very much kind of stumble upon education more out of need um, than planned. My son, our youngest son, was born with Down syndrome, and a few years into his life, we received the autism diagnosis as well. So we have a dual diagnosis for him of Down syndrome and autism, which is a wonderful combination. It's a very fun adventure, but it does add some different elements to how he needs to be educated. As far as being able to have a little bit more time and flexibility in how lessons are prepared and presented to him, and numbers of repetition, and just the time to explore everything. And so in our journey, we knew right away that we wanted for him to be with his peers, that in early education, that was so important for him to be around people who he could see as an example. So he would have a positive role model or a positive peer that he could kind of look up to. And a lot of what he learns by is imitation. So having those good examples of not only how to be a good friend and behavior, but communication and what learning looks like. We wanted that for him. And so early on, from preschool on, we set that up to have him be in classrooms with supports from aides. And then I would work alongside teachers with how to modify lessons. And I would work with inclusion specialists and therapists and all different people just to create this opportunity for him and the other kids to be able to experience students that are different than them, that learn differently, think differently, and have different strengths and weaknesses than what they may have. And it was going great until it was time for him to enter kindergarten. And we knew we also wanted to continue with the Christian education because he is our youngest and also our most vulnerable child, right? He wasn't quite able to communicate effectively for himself, advocate for himself, come home and tell us really about his day, about what happened, if anything good or bad happened. So we wanted him in that Christian environment. Because we felt like he would be nurtured and loved and, looked after a little bit differently. And we would also be able to hopefully work more closely with teachers versus if he was to go to a public school, we might not have as much accessibility to what he's learning and to who he's learning with, and even just what he's doing during his day. And then we really wanted something that aligned with our family's faith and values so that he could get that at school and at home. So as we started down that journey of looking for a kindergarten placement for him, we just kind of kept running into closed doors and roadblocks of there's a lot of great Christian schools in our area, but not a lot of them are equipped and ready to, bring in students like Zane. And so we would try different ones with different solutions, and there just didn't seem to be a good fit. And so we ended up homeschooling him largely for kindergarten and part of first grade. Actually, he's 8, so he's kind of that second grade age, first second grade age. And so we did homeschooling for him here. And in that year and a half that we were homeschooling, we were introduced with this wonderful woman of Concordus Education Partners, and she has this consulting company up in Idaho that partners with parents and partners with schools to create exactly what we were looking for. Small classroom sizes that really worked to integrate beautifully neurotypical kids and neurodiverse kids into a small community classroom where everybody's learning needs were supported and met. And most importantly, she's a Christian as well. So that was important to her that we create a really solid Christian school that could serve all students well, but making sure that our teachers and staff were trained and equipped to bring in kids who learned differently and know how to support them. So
Oh, it's just amazing.
our journey started, and it's been almost a year and a half, 2 years ago, that we met her. And so we took our time. We took a year and a half to really get things started, to find teachers, to find curriculum, to find a place. And then we launched in August. So,
Just so great.
yeah.
So, what were some of the biggest challenges then, Jen, in that startup year? As you said, you took your time to before launch to kind of solidify your vision and your curriculum and find teachers and a location. Reflecting back on that pre-launch time, what were some of the biggest challenges?
I think our biggest challenge was to be patient, um, and let things unfold at the right time. So there is such a need for this. We would talk with people, we would hear that, they're interested in this. And even for our own son, it was, it was, it was hard to not want to jump ahead in steps or try and push things into being.
Mm.
And so just really being patient so that we could do it well, making sure we found the right people, um, uh, waiting for that community to build. So we actually, we would have our checklist of what needed to happen and where we were in that process. And I would say we need to find a building because families want to know where we're going to be located. But that was actually one of the very last pieces that fell into place. And so, but in the meantime, while we were, waiting for a building, all of our teachers fell into place, and then all of the people on our board, and then it gave us time to, because I was homeschooling, I could kind of test out different curriculum. How did this work for Zane? What didn't I like about it? We could talk with different teachers. So so it's just being patient because I was excited about this opportunity. I wanted to just get going because I knew it was
Yeah.
going to be really great. But I remind myself and I tell people it's almost like a flower blooming. You can't force it open. You'll end up with an open flower, but it's not going to be as beautiful as if you just let it open at its own time, at the right stages. So I think that was the hardest part, probably.
And so you are a 501c3 nonprofit, is that right? With a board. So you decided
Yes,
to go that route.
board. Yep.
Yep. And then tell us how you went about recruiting your teachers and your parents, getting the word out to prospective parents about what you were building. So how was that process?
So our process for our teachers, it was a lot of just connecting with, sorry, my dogs just ran in here. A lot of connecting with other people who are school choice advocates, and networking to find interested people and getting the word out of what I'm doing and just letting them know, like, hey, I'm looking for teachers. I'm looking for people who want to be flexible in what and how lessons are delivered, and just kind of would tell him my vision of what I'm doing. And one by one, I would just kind of start meeting people, just very organically. Sometimes I would advertise for it, but it seemed like the people that have joined our staff, it has just been very organic. It's somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And so our first teacher actually was found right away. And we were blessed that she had a job. She wasn't quite ready to start teaching, which was great because we didn't have students or a building or anything. And so she was very content to just kind of wait in the wings and let things develop. And so we kind of had her locked down, probably right from the beginning, within a month or two of us saying, yes, we're going to do this. And then at the start of last school year, so the 2022-2023 school year, I met one of our other teachers more. I connected with her to talk to her about kind of what she was doing, because she worked in a very similar school environment, just not faith-based. And so I was talking to her about how they, do their school with the small classes, and just kind of seeing what works, what doesn't. And so in talking to her, we just realized that our vision and our missions lined up. And so she was able to finish out her contract year and then come over and join us. So really things just kind of fell into place where we were able to start building a solid team, without having to pay them to retain them because they already had jobs. And so it was just like one of those blessing things of, everything just kind of fell into place, as far as teaching staff. And then aides, it was just word of mouth. We would post maybe in Facebook groups or just start telling people about it. Hey, this is what we're looking for. And people would kind of share that. And as far as families would go, again, it was a lot of word of mouth. As you can imagine, the need for neurodiverse kids to have Christian education and to be welcomed, and supported in Christian education is really great. And so a lot of families would reach out. Hey, could my child come? What about this? I have this situation. And so a lot of it just kind of started there with different families reaching out to hear about what we're doing. Sibling groups that couldn't go to the same school, but now have an opportunity to be at the same school. So just talking and doing a lot of, sharing our heart and our vision, and then waiting. So as
Yeah.
I said, a lot of people were interested, but where we didn't have that location yet to tell them this is where school is going to be, there was just a lot of it took a lot of trust and faith from everybody, teachers, parents, myself, that, God was going to do something really great and bring everything to fruition. And he did. So it's
And that
been
was
good.
also how you got your location too, which is really
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Lovely individual classroom spaces, and then this beautiful open courtyard in a church location. And that was also because of your vision, and that being a really attractive, compelling statement for the church community that you ultimately found as this location. Is that right?
Right. Yes. So when we were looking for places, we obviously started with all the local churches, and I called every single church within a radius, large church, medium-sized church, everyone that I could think of, and, emailed, phone called, and just nothing was working out. Right. Churches have their own programs that they're doing. Maybe some were already, leasing their space to other schools. Some they just weren't open, or it wasn't in their vision, right, to have a school
Mm.
there and whatnot. And so we were kind of coming down to crunch time of, we're coming up on summer. And so one of our other teachers, she's been awesome in helping me. She and I we made a huge list of every church that we hadn't contacted, and started calling. And she made contact with the pastor at Full Life Church. And he was very interested, largely because we do have that special needs component. He said that he had had a lot of schools contact them and interested in their space, but because we were open to having that special needs community as part of the fiber of who we are right from the get-go, he was really inspired by that because he had a personal connection to that community. And so to have that as our main as a main part of our mission really inspired him and interested him. So that was kind of like one of the final big pieces that fell into place right at the end of last school year. So we were able
Yeah.
to secure that space and then have the summer to get ready for the kids to come in August. So it was,
Incredible. Yeah, and so you opened in August of 2023, and you try to keep this balance of roughly a third of the students neurodiverse with special needs, and then two-thirds neurotypical. Tell us how that has been, and I know you have a wait list for some grades. Tell us a little bit about what that student composition is like now.
yeah. So in this model, working with our consultant, that's kind of the sweet spot that she has found that really makes this model work. So having that very specific ratio of making sure that there is a greater positive peer role model base for our students who need that extra support, coupled with keeping our class sizes small. So we are committed. Each learning group will have a maximum of 12 students to one teacher and one aide. And we feel like that is just a really great number for teachers to really get to know their students and see where their students are excelling and struggling, but also for the kids to really connect and become their own little community within our school. And then within that learning group, we do try to keep it to about that 30% student that require a lot of additional support. And by additional support, we mean, maybe a lot more lesson modification or, redirection, helping them learn how to learn within the context of our group. And so how we do our learning groups is important as well, because we don't just throw kids together in a class based on their age and their grade.
Mm.
Another reason why this model is working so well is we group our kids based on mastery of the subject. So then that is another way that even some of our kids who maybe have learning differences or challenges can do really well in a classroom, is because we assess them, we see where they're at with these different subjects. And then that's where we will place them in the learning group that's going to give them the appropriate challenge and the appropriate support. So instead of just moving them along because they had a birthday to where they get more and more frustrated with the content because they're struggling with it, we're able to support them with where they're at. So, and that goes to meeting their needs if, say, they're a little behind, or meeting their needs if they're advancing. So kids can move up in any of the subjects if they are thriving and need a little bit more challenge, or they can, stay right where they're at, or they can drop down a level if they, need a little bit more time wrestling with some of the concepts at a certain level. So that's what makes it beautiful with having the neurotypical and the neurodiverse kids, is that everybody is kind of on the same playing field. There isn't, you are, like, everybody else is learning fourth grade material and we have a kiddo who's fourth grade age, but at second grade level material, right? Or vice versa. We have a second grader who is just thriving and loves learning and is ready to do fourth grade material, but is bored out of their mind because they're stuck in second grade. So really, we're able to just meld everybody together. And what we've seen is just kids thriving and having, enjoying school and making gains and creating this beautiful community. So,
Just this individualized learning for every child,
right.
neurodiverse or neurotypical. Everyone's able to work at their own pace and move ahead when they're ready to move ahead, and slow down when they need to slow down. And it's
Mhm.
all mastery based. And I know when I visited Jen, you said that you have an older son who's at a conventional private Christian school. And you were saying, obviously he's quite happy there and has been there for a while. But had your program existed when he was sort of entering kindergarten, you think this is the ideal model. Is that right?
I think because it does give kids that flexibility of learning and meets their needs. So it really cultivates curiosity, it cultivates that love of learning, and it helps us identify and play to the student's strengths and weaknesses. So
So where are you seeing the most interest now in your community? I guess where are the wait lists, or where what are families, who are the families that are coming to you looking for a spot at the moment?
So the families that are coming looking for the spot, first of all, we've had nearly 100% re-enrollment. So almost all of the kids that started with us this year and have continued with us are coming back next year, which is wonderful for us. It kind of shows us that the kids are thriving and they're happy and the parents are pleased. But it does also cause some problems for us with enrollment because we are honoring that ratio of kids to and so we don't have a lot of extra space this next year, and we are adding one more learning group, so we're adding another potential 12 seats, and then
Mm,
redistributing our kids. But the need that we're seeing the most in is, of course, the neurodiverse kids. We do, I have started networking with some of the other Christian schools in the area. And so when a family comes, they do let them know, like, hey, we do not have the capabilities to serve your child well. Go check out Arrows. So that's amazing. I'm very thankful for that. But that's the hard part, is that I
mm,
feel like a lot of times I'm having to say no to myself because these families come and they are going through the same struggle that I did, and we're full with kids that require additional support. And so
mm,
pretty much in all of the grades, for right now, we have a wait list for kids that require that, which just shows the need and the desire for families to have this. And so that's the hard part, but the good part. But we're also seeing kids that are neurotypical coming because they want some flexibility in their learning. So they might be requiring a little extra challenge, and so they come to us for that. They also come because we are a small school and we do have that really low student teacher ratio. And we also offer a 5-day option and a 3-day option. So we actually have a lot of families that are coming because they do want that more time at home with their kids. And so a lot
yeah.
of times they're coming because they want some down days and some family days while their kids still get really rich, good education. So, so a lot of our growth this coming next year, it's kind of spread across all of the grades as far as interest. But we have a really good incoming kind of kindergarten age group, first grade, and so it's right now it's a lot of the younger grades that we're reaching capacity on in our learning groups. And then in the upper grades, we just have a few spaces left. So
Wow.
we're excited.
Yeah, and you're K-8 now, but you'll continue to add grades as kids grow up into a full K-12 private school. And you think that you'll probably max out around 125 kids. You don't think you want to get too much larger than that. Is that right?
Yeah, 125, 150. It just kind of depends on what the Lord does and provides for. So we don't want to grow too fast. We don't want to, we have the interest that we could add a couple different learning groups next year, but we're committed to doing things well and serving our families well. So
Mm,
we want to kind of grow in increments. Um, and then as they bring teachers and as we bring larger spaces and facilities, we just are going to really take our time to get to that larger number, so that we can make sure we do it well.
yeah, and like you said, there seems to be such a large unmet demand, especially for families with neurodiverse kiddos who are looking for an individualized Christian education, that they're not able to find that. So hopefully there'll be more opportunities there. I wonder if you could talk a little bit, Jen, about how you're sort of integrating services and therapies for your students sort of within the school week.
Sure, sure. So we have kids who, require maybe speech or occupational therapy. We have some students who might have ABA therapy or even dyslexia. So they might want to work with a specialized dyslexia tutor or reading tutor. So we work with the family. We're building relationships with clinics so they can come into the school and have, kind of set hours and days that they work with the students. And we do have a small room off to the side of one of our classrooms. So the students are able to receive, other therapy services that they need that are, it's hard, especially if parents are working to get their kids into those. So by making these connections and building these relationships with these different clinics, then we just kind of have a set schedule of different students that need their therapy, and they check into the school, and they go into the little room next door and they get their therapy, and when they're finished they just pop back into the class. And so a lot of times the way I see it is that all of these therapies, especially in these formative years of elementary education, um, that it's only going to help them create a more solid foundation for higher learning and deeper learning as they move up and as they progress in their therapies. So anytime that a family asks if, hey, can this person come in to work with my student, then obviously we meet with the therapist and we meet with the family, and we, make sure it's working well, and we keep tabs on things. We don't just let them run amok at the school, but we make sure that it's going well for everybody, and just the benefits overall for everybody has been so great. So
So let's talk a little bit about affordability and accessibility, Jen, because you are in Arizona, which is the first state to pass universal school choice legislation, enabling all students in the state to have access to roughly $7,000 per student per year to use in a variety of educational expenses, including arrows. And then you also in Arizona, of course, have had years of successful school choice programs, including policies for students with special needs. So tell us how that works within your tuition model and a family's ability to pay.
so how we've structured our tuition so far is we've taken a few things into consideration. The first and foremost is, what do we need to charge in order to provide really quality education and pay our teachers well? I would love to pay all of our staff way more than we do, but that's kind of where we started. What do we need to do to be able to offer a really quality education and keep our doors open? So that was kind of our starting point. Knowing too that there are these options to help with tuition assistance. And so a lot of times people ask us, why didn't you set it to where ESA would cover it all? And it's like, well, we set it at a place that we feel really matches the value that you're getting. And so for a lot of families, our 3-day option is affordable with some out-of-pocket expense, which I think is also helpful, right? It's a little bit of skin in the game. It's a little bit of a private investment to your child's education. But for the most part, our 3-day option can be largely covered on the base US universal ESA, or with networking and having some of the STO, the tuition organization tax credits and donations. So and then the 5-day option is a little bit more expensive. There is a little bit more out of pocket for those universal families, but it's not an exorbitant amount. For some it could be a struggle, right? And so we do have, we are trying to create a scholarship base for families so that finances are never the reason why they are precluded from coming. But just having those options, learning about them myself, knowing and understanding, with one of my children, we have ESA, the other child we do STO. So knowing and understanding those programs so that we can help families leverage the best option for them, and helping them navigate that so that it can be affordable for them.
And the ESA is the Universal Education Savings Account program. That's around 7,000. And I know you said for your 3-day program, you're sort of right around that price point, roughly 7,800, I think, for the 3-day. So families are able to pretty much apply their ESA to that full tuition. And then the STO, this is sort of the stackable services. Is that correct, for
So
students
it's not
with special
stackable,
needs? Okay,
unfortunately. It's either one or the other. So families have the
got it.
option of those two things. So it is either one or the other for the entire school year. For ESA, if you have a child with an IEP or a diagnosis, ESA can at times offer more financial support for your child, because if they were to go to a public school, that school would obviously have more services and supports, and that child would get more funding from that public school. So there is the potential with ESA that you would get a higher funding base,
Yeah.
which is amazing for families, because some children might require, like I said, additional therapy that maybe there isn't another way for it to cover, or needing more creative ways of presenting materials. So having this extra funding base allows parents that flexibility to find the right match and the right needs for their kids. For, I would say, kind of your typical learner, the universal funding amount is around $7,000. For
Yeah.
STOs, that one, it does take a little bit more legwork, in that you need to find people that would apply their tax credit to your child's education, and or businesses that value Christian education, that would be willing to make a general donation to a school, in which
Mm,
the school then can determine if there are students with a need. But it isn't both, it's one or the other. And so we help
got it.
families which program might be the best for them, and how to, go at it to make their child's education
But
affordable.
everyone, basically all of your students, are coming with some form of tuition assistance. Is that right? Through either the ESA or the STO program?
The majority of them, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So there are some
that's
families who
amazing.
are in a position, or for one reason or another, maybe they came in partway through the year and they haven't been able to get their funding from that. Might be some out of pocket, but
Mm,
Arizona is such a wonderful place for school choice, that we really try to help families get established with one or the other, so that they can just focus more on educating their child, and being
yeah,
with their child and the family, than how they're going to make ends meet to have their child have a good education.
so great. And then Jen, isn't it right too that you have a program, like a drop-in weekly program for homeschoolers to want to participate in enrichment programs?
Well, we do have that pending enrollment of our own
Mm,
students. So this year,
got it.
we have about half of our students do the 5-day program, and half of our students do the 3-day program. So our 3-day program is when we hit our core academic subjects. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is when we do all of the math, reading, science, writing, history, art, PE, all of those core subjects. And so all of the students get that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then we offer the Monday, Friday enrichment days. And those look different. So Friday is just open for Arrow students right now. And we do bring in some enrichment. We bring in some PE groups, and we have some activities, but we use that day largely as a homework day of facilitating the remote learning lessons that all of the kids take home for those 2 extra days for those families that are the 3-day. So our staff works with kids to get their studying done, and their lessons, and their practicing and preparing for the next week. On Mondays, that's kind of our really fun enrichment kind of elective day. So how we set up that program was we bring in specialty instructors. So this year we had a martial arts instructor, an art teacher, a drama teacher, and the first semester we had music, and the second semester we have PE. And so because we only had roughly half of our students, I was able to partner with a homeschool, a group that offered enrichment activities to homeschoolers. And so we opened up the remainder of our spots to them. And
Mm,
so, yes, so on Mondays, they come just for that portion,
yeah.
the 2.5 or 4.5 hours of that enrichment learning. And we'll continue that as long as we have enrollment as space. So we have to make sure, we have seats for our kids, and then I communicate with them each semester, how many students they can open it up to. So
Mm,
next year, we just have to kind of look with our increased enrollment, and then families that maybe were only 3 days this year, but want to switch to 5 days next year. We'll continue that partnership as long as we have um,
space.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then if we were
So,
to, get a larger facility down the road and have the opportunity to have, more students around and have instructors to support them. And obviously we love having that day. It's fun to have the joy and the excitement of all of the kids coming in and broadening our communities. So we definitely
mm,
want to support that. So
oh, that's so great. So, Jen, you really are a pioneer for kind of Christ-centered, child-centered, individualized learning that's fully integrated with neurodiverse and neurotypical students. What do you see as the future of that model? Where do you see that going, or more generally, even beyond you as an entrepreneur over the coming years?
I hope that by what we're doing, um, other schools who maybe have been a little hesitant to incorporate kids with different needs into their class will see that it is possible. And so I see hopefully our school growing, but then also, other schools starting up. We do want to stop. Like, we don't want to get to where we're hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids and we lose touch with our families and with that community. And so, our model is if we grow to 150 kids and we have this huge long wait list, that we'll just open up another campus so that we can have maintain that small community individual feel. But also working with our consultant and connecting her with other interested people, right? Because I would not have undertaken this at all without connecting with Heather and having her guidance and her wisdom and her experience in this. And so hopefully my vision is that Arrows will grow and thrive, and families will see that it's an excellent school, not only for the opportunity of kids with different learning needs to come in and be supportive, but also, a rich education for all students. And then too, that other schools in the area would be interested on, like, hey, you're having success with this model, and this student is able to, be a part of the community and thrive. Like, what is it that you're doing? How do you do that? How do you support your teachers? So that we can share that and hopefully um, not have to turn people away.
Mm.
So yeah, or
Ah,
split.
just
Like, that's, like our sons are at different schools, and that's something that we pray about every year, and a choice that we made that is important for our family and for the trajectory that they're both on. But we have a lot of families who this is the first time that their kids have been able to go to school together. For parents,
so great.
to have that where it's just one point of contact, their kids are getting the same thing, and so to have that for them is amazing, to be able to not have to have their kids split up. But then we also have families who, like mine, who they do have one child at another school and one child at ours because that's what's best for them. And so to see those kids that are with us thrive, um, and a lot of our typical kids that we have coming, the neurotypical kids, it's great for them because we do a lot of project-based, hands-on learning. They're not just sitting at a desk for hours on hours listening. It's here is our lesson on, you know, on birds, and instead of just telling them about all the different types of beaks, the teacher in that class actually created a hands-on experience for the kids of what would it be like to have this type of bird beak and this type of bird beak and this type of
Mm,
bird beak, and what purpose does it have. So it gives kids a different way to approach learning, where they're up out of their seats, they're doing hands-on projects, they're learning things, they're applying things. So for our typical neurotypical kids, it's not just sitting and listening, because we do have that small class size, it gives us that opportunity to be up and out of our seats and moving around and doing different things. So it's really exciting to watch the light bulbs
right.
go off, and the joy and the laughter, and the, guess what we did in class today, like hearing about all of those things. It's really
Yeah, and I definitely saw that up close when I was able to visit too. Just a very joyful, hands-on environment where everyone is flourishing, learners and teachers alike, which is really
Yep.
exciting.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, Jen, you're coming at close to the end of your first academic year running Arrows. I wonder, what advice you have for other folks who are listening, especially moms. I mean, you never thought you'd be a school founder, and then you had to create something to solve a problem for your own family and realized that it was a need within your larger community. So, what advice would you have for other parents who are listening and inspired by what you've built as they begin their school startup journey?
Um, I think I'd have a couple different advice. So for the parents whose kids are, kind of neurotypical mainstream students, if you come across a school like ours and you're concerned about the impact having kids who learn differently in the same classroom as your child, and concerns about, is it going to be too distracting for my child? Are they not going to have their needs met? I would say to be open to giving it a try, because it
Mm,
is a wonderful opportunity for all children to grow in empathy and compassion and patience, and life, right? Our world is not cookie cutter where everybody is exactly like us. When we are out in society, we are interacting with different people of different beliefs, of different thoughts, of different abilities. And so by being a part of a school that really integrates everything, you really start to exercise a muscle that I think a lot of us don't have the opportunity to. So those kids that have come in who maybe have not had exposure to students who learn differently, it has been beautiful to watch them come in with some hesitation at first, to now gravitating towards some of the kids who are different from them, and running around and playing, and it's almost like they don't see the difference anymore. They just
mm,
see here. And so I would just encourage those families to seek out that opportunity, because it really is rewarding, um, to give your child that opportunity. Um, for the families that have students with different learning needs, even if it's something like ADHD, where it's not necessarily like a formal diagnosis like Down syndrome or autism, but ADHD, where their kiddo just needs to be active, or be given opportunities to learn differently or have different experiences. If there's something in your gut that is like not sitting well, like don't be afraid to press into that, and like ask questions and find out different ways to do things, because a lot of times the communities that you find will come alongside and support you. And then if there is something like you keep running into these closed doors, um, you know, like we did, like we kept going down a path and the door would close, and we'd go down a path and the door would close, and we'd go down a path and the door would close. And it was just frustrating of like, what are we going to do?
I love that. And it is beautiful. You've created such a beautiful learning environment. So, congratulations on a successful first year and many more to come. Jen, what is the best way for my listeners and viewers to learn more about Arrows Christian Academy and follow your journey?
So they can go to our website. Our website is arrowschristian.org. That's probably the best way. We are also on Facebook and Instagram. So Instagram is where, and Facebook is where we post a lot of our day-to-day excitement and fun that our students are doing, that our teachers are doing. So you can get a glimpse of the kinds of things that our students get to experience by coming to Arrows. And then the website obviously has a little bit more in depth about our journey and why we started, as well as our mission and our model for things. So they can go,
Terrific.
they can go there. But even though we have a wait list on some, I still love to talk with parents because, things change. And as enrollment increases, we might be able to open up more seats. And also one of the things that we've found is that our kiddos that might start out as quote unquote, that 30% in our model, with their needs support and with their needs supported, some that started out as that 30% this year are actually going to be our peer role models next year. And so just because they were in that category this year, just having their needs supported and placed in the right spot, they are becoming our peer role models. And so
Mhm.
to not give up and to just, I would love to talk with anybody about what we're doing. So
Amazing. Well, Jen Granberry, best wishes to you and to the continued success of Arrows Christian Academy. And thank you so much for being on the Liberated podcast.
thank you for having me.